record that, and finally we can begin. Yeah, so hopefully you had a good weekend. Hopefully you had a nice, experience with your first weekend, extra weekend back, I guess. For those of you who missed us last week due to the crazy weather up, was it Midwest? Midwest was insane. Glad to see you here. And essentially, you've missed a bunch of stuff, but it's not anything you can't catch up on. So if you are one of those individuals who got caught in the snow and the ice and everything else, but yeah, very easy to catch up. If you need more help catching up, just let me know, and I'll help you out. All right, and so here we are. A little bit of review from your 110 things. And because it's review, I am not going to get crazy into specifics. I'm just going to sort of lightly brush up on it, let you, take part in exploring your mind again. When it comes to bitmap images, vector images, raise your hand if you remember this stuff. A little bit. If you don't, that's fine. So, yes. Okay, good. So this is good that we're reviewing. So it's kind of half and half. Thank you, Peter. Everybody got the sign-in sheet? We're good? No? All right, cool. Can you pass that? Oh, can't reach it. There you go. Bitmap images are made of a grid of dots of pixels, right? That's why they have this disgusting appearance when you blow them up. But they're also, beautiful in their own way, right? That sort of blurriness can actually add depth if you use it properly. And we'll get into that. A lot of it is just sort of mathematical, binary code oriented. So when displayed or printed, the value and order of the bits is, interpreted by the computer. And it just produces a sort of analog version of this image through zeros and ones. But and you can actually compress it to a mathematical representation if you needed to.
It's kind of funny how if we look closer at those zeros and ones, they were all blurry as well.
Oh, yeah, the meta-ness of that. But as you all know, pixels are things you can count, right? So in Photoshop, we had a lot of measurements going on. Last time I was in, when it came to just kind of putting a guide in place, right? I guess not a lot, but we did one or two, right? Where we're putting a guide in place to know where that floor is, and then we can put the floor where the guide is. And if you wanted to be super accurate, you could count those pixels and place those that guide in a very precise location, or the top of the shape, right? Resolution. A lot of this is done in such a way where it's almost like I don't know if you've ever seen a Chuck Close painting, but Chuck Close, I had dinner with him one time. He's a great guy. He has paintings that are basically very pixelated. Part of that is due to the fact that he had to kind of adjust to his condition, because he ended up getting some kind of something with his, he couldn't move, like he ended up being a paraplegic, right? Is that how you say that? Somebody who couldn't move his muscles entirely. And so he thought about the pixel and how, we can see more far away than up close, right? And that's sort of how pixels work in a way. But pixel density brings the clarity, brings the so that you can actually look at it up close without any sort of consequence. So the more dense, the clearer it is. Digital printing typically will go by DPI, or dots per inch, and if you're looking at a drawing such as Batgirl here, 8 by 10. 300 DPI, pixel dimensions would be 8 inches multiplied by 300, and then on the other side 10 times 300 dpi, 300 dots per inch. And obviously you get more clarity, right? It's fairly basic stuff. You all know this. And it's not as much of a concern when it comes to DPI. It's not as much of a concern on screens. Screens don't necessarily need to worry about that. It's more about the pixels. So pixels take dominance or prominence when it comes to screens. That's why you see things like 72 ppi or 300. The result of exponentiation with numbers. So your exponentiation with the number 2 is usually how we're going to look at this when we go to import sprites or PNGs that we create from Photoshop or Illustrator or wherever we made them in, perhaps even in Animate. We're going to be cognizant of these numbers, 256, 512, 1024, and the reason why is because these are the numbers that are typically used to actually compress the files, so they're very specific to whatever type of compression you're utilizing. So we'll be cognizant of that when we go to import our assets that we make into Unity and so on. We're not using 8K, but we'll probably go up to 2K, right? We probably won't need to do anything more than that. We're making a 2D platformer, so. But yeah, the more detail you have, let's say you're trying to make something more realistic, obviously you're going to want it to be something, and this is a UV unwrap of this 3D character's texture, right? Obviously you want more pixels for clarity, for resolution. So 2048 by 2048 would be a nice 2K resolution that you can utilize. Probably not necessary for something cartoonish like this. I think something cartoonish you can kind of get away with something like 1024, honestly. But with the systems now, you might as well use 2048. They can run fine on that. There's really no issues there. You just want to be careful about how many materials or textures you're utilizing on one object. So aliased lines and things that we create, you got to be careful. They will make your things look ugly, especially the 3D objects. The 3D objects really get a hit take a hit when things aren't anti-aliased. And typically you would want at least 2x, two passes basically, where it's like, okay, let me look at this, let me look at that again, just so that it can compute a sort of blend or blur along that edge versus the stepping that occurs when it is actually aliased. So the anti-aliasing smooths things out. You may already know this. Who actually went over this in 110? A little bit? All right, good. So yeah, you want to just be cognizant of it. Here's some differences. This one is probably only a 2x anti-alias because of, the difference is not easy to see, honestly. But it's there. Another thing to be cognizant of is the way we scale imagery. If we have a large image, scaling down is a great thing to do. Nothing wrong with that. If you have a small image and you're scaling up, definitely not good. Always start with a larger image. Even on import, you can actually compress and make it a little bit smaller, right? So it's totally fine to start large. And then vector graphics. We won't be doing too much of this, but it is, we might do a little bit of it today actually in our demo, which we're going to make a logo for a game as a sort of class activity. In addition, we'll be doing some more messing around in Photoshop, in particular with mood boards, because I feel like that's important to kind of get a grasp on. You've all done mood boards, I'm pretty sure. So we may start with the logo, and then if we get to it, do the mood board. I do have a video where I just kind of go over Photoshop basics again, but I also do the mood board in another video that I made yesterday, actually. So if you wanted to follow along with that, you could. I don't know how how much of that I want to do today. I want to start with the logo and then go from there. I think that's just smarter and a better use of our time. So with vectors, and you may be using this with your logo, it's a path, right? We're not using pixels. It's a different sort of mathematical expression. So you can use nodes or control points to alter it. You'll see these sort of nodes and control point curves, curve editing capabilities. You'll see it in Unity's animation system as well. So be cognizant of that. Be familiar with how those work. Pretty synonymous across the board, no matter what software you're using, actually. But it's interesting how it is all related in that way, and they all sort of look the same. For vector graphics, they're just independent. They can be scaled without losing any clean edge, right? Because it is a curve or path, we don't need to. The expression is different, right? We don't have any stepping that will occur. Now, when you get into Unity, no matter what you make is going to probably be pixelated, right? It turns into pixels. That's how it operates. So we'll be cognizant of that. But yeah, a lot smoother. Very good for logos. Very, very good for print, I would say. All of this stuff you've already kind of dove into. A little example of a vector graphic of Mount Fuji. Some points on color, which I'm pretty sure you all went over. Who wants to tell me what complementary colors there are? Just tell me, then I'll know that I can skip this. Huh? What was it? I'll make it a little bit easier for you all. So use the wheel. Yeah, go ahead.
Red and green, is purple and yellow.
Yes.
And those are the ones I know off the top of my head.
So yeah, go ahead. Good. Was it? Yeah, orange and blue. And those are like the primary complementary colors, right? You could go around this whole circle and there'd be like different shades of things that complement each other, like this more pale orange, right? Pale blue. This sort of greenish yellow with this sort of violet-esque dark color, right? Like there's variations. And then the colors next to colors, what would you call those? The colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. That's what I want to know right now. I usually don't go this deep into this, but this is interesting. Yeah, okay.
Isn't it analogous colors?
Yes, analogous, yep. Yeah, so that is the name of the game there. And it's important to know this stuff. I'm actually glad that you all have some recollection of that from 110, because it's, at least some of you, because you can help each other later. It's important, especially if with design, right? Like you need to know your colors. If you don't, then you're just gonna make bad designs. I love it when people make ugly things, though. So if you do make ugly things, I want you to make it as ugly as possible. Because if you go like way too ugly, it ends up looking good. So I want you to, if you think you're gonna make something ugly, just make it really, really ugly. Like try to be so off base with like composition. Just make it ridiculous, and I will probably fall in love with it. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, you should look up the Maryland flag for this effect.
I lived in Baltimore. It's the flag is a bit busy, but it's but I love it. It actually looks good. Like it's amazing. Are you talking about the same thing I'm talking about?
Green and violet.
Which is like the Maryland state flag.
Yeah, okay, good. I'm just gonna make sure that I'm on the same page with you, because it's just red, black, yellow.
Red and white.
I don't know.
But it's, yeah,
Weird to think about.
I mean, this is like vaporwave, but like warm colors. Like that's what this is.
It looks like police tape.
I'm obsessed with their flag. I think it's so ridiculous that it's just gorgeous. Their license plates are nice. Alaska's license plate and flag is badass. It's just like, what, the Little Dipper or some crap?
It's weird to think about.
Was
Green
it?
and violet, like, if compacted, look horrible and hurt the eyes, but green and violet on, like, villains and stuff,
Oh, it looks great.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's weird.
Yeah.
I don't think it works.
Yeah, like the Goblin in Spider-Man. I mean, he's
I was thinking the Joker, but yeah.
the Joker. Yep. Yeah. They, for some reason, those are the villain colors: green
Yeah,
and
they
purple. Yeah. It's
always used in Disney films.
yeah. Disney does it. Yeah. Well, they also did for the Hulk though, because with the classic purple,
But Hulk isn't really a good guy either.
he's like a half and halfer.
He was originally supposed to be gray.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. That was interesting. The whole Jim Lee did a whole Gray series. It was really good. If you were interested in reading it, you should actually read it. It's really good.
You should have a separate character called Comic Hulk, and he's just gray.
Yeah, it's interesting what colors do and what colors relate to. It's so that's why though, right? That like this is evidence to why, like those colors on those characters, they just fit. Like they just feel like they belong. Like the Joker, it feels like the classic Joker look. It feels like the green and purple. Like that just looks like that's what he's supposed to be. And that's probably what happened when they were making it. They're like, oh yeah, that's about right. Yeah. So you'll see HSV a lot. Hue, saturation, value. All of this is to adjust richness and saturation, the actual color, which is the hue. And then value being dark to light. It's typical stuff, but good to review. And then there's your dance floor. We don't need to do that though because you've all passed the you missed the dance move thing. What is your favorite dance move and what is your name?
My name's Mother, and I don't have a favorite dance.
Oh, that might have taken us over the edge, people. Think we're gonna have to do a dance party.
It's required now.
Now a lot of things that we want to dig into when it comes to color is bit depth. Bit depth is very important in Unity. You want to be cognizant of how much you're using. I wouldn't go past, dependent on what you're doing, of course. I think for what we're doing, 16-bit is pretty much fine. 32 is fine, right? And we'll probably do 32, right? We'll probably do 32 just so we can get a nice range. And it really gives you more color. You get a lot out of it. So, and they're all powers of 2, right? So you have 2 and 16 for 16 bits, 2 to the 24th for 24 bits. A lot of tones come out of that. And you can see the difference here. So we have 1 bit on the far left, all the way up to 16 bits on the far right. So big differences. 16-bit you can actually get away with a lot. Pong used 1 bitonal, along with this actually newer game, well newer than Pong of course. The Music Machine also used a bitonal technique. A little bit of 8-bit here, and yeah, you can do more, right? There's more is possible. So the Nintendo Entertainment System utilized 8-bit through and through, essentially. And then once we got the Super Nintendo and the like, we migrated into a sort of 16-bit 4th generation. Mario, Metroid, all those guys, Zelda. But yeah, 24-bit was sort of the next step, and definitely sort of synonymous with true color computer monitors. Offered just a gigantic range, 16 million colors, and is the beginning of proper color in relationship to screens. Red, green, blue. So red being another depth, right? Each of these are depths. It looks black and white, right? So green for the 8-bit there, blue all of these piled on top of each other give it a sort of depth. Then nowadays we're at 32-bit, sometimes 64-bit, right? And it's evolving. So there's one thing that is different from where we were before is we have this new channel in RGB called alpha. It's not new anymore, but at this time it was new. And alpha is important. We can make smoke, we can make particle effects, we can have, it's easier to make sprites, right? Because now we can sort of actually draw the sprite versus, plugging it in with code. So alpha channel gives you that transparency that you need, and it makes it easier to animate, makes it a lot easier for a free-floating character to come into existence and utilize. We won't get too hard and heavy on this one. This is this individual pixel stuff. I think this is hilarious. We're zooming in on this guy's face. But yeah, it's a matter of being careful. You do need to be careful. We're going to be using a lot of different compressions, but only one really in Unity that you really have to know about. So we'll have the opportunity to use a lot, but we'll probably only use one or two. So just putting that out there. And so it's important. And be aware of how your file types compress, right? TIFF, Targa, PNG, all of those hold an alpha channel. JPEG does not. So it's going to be lossy, which is, you lose that alpha channel, but you also lose quality if you're readjusting it in some fashion, especially scaling up. You'll lose more quality, I should say. You'll still lose quality in PNG, of course, if you do that, but you'll lose more in JPEG. With lossless files like PNG and Targa and TIFF and the like, you can maintain that transparency. Very good for webcomics, obviously, logos, and sprites. And you can sift through this at your own time. I'm not going to get crazy on it. I think that you've all went over this stuff. It's kind of pointless for me to just keep on going. So JPEG is the one that does not have transparency. That is our main takeaway here. And GIFs, that's a different story.
I love when you download a JPEG and it just does not have, it just has an annoying white background.
Yeah, exactly. That white background that's typical of a JPEG, right? We're constantly sort of fighting that abyss of white. But yeah, the PNG makes that fight easier. It takes the white background out. Obviously, you have to set up your file in a particular way. Like, it's not just going to go away. Like, you have to, make sure that if you're in Illustrator or Photoshop, that you have a literal transparent background as your canvas. And we'll get into that momentarily. But a little bit on frame composition first, because I think that's important. So why look back? Early on, game graphics were very primitive. Such as Yard's Revenge here, extremely primitive and ugly, but also beautiful at the same time. So ugly, it's beautiful. But you can notice how the possibilities started opening up once the technology and the hardware got better, right? And once we were able to use 16-bit or even 8-bit, in this case, we're really starting to we're able to actually form a little bit more character out of not only the character, but the environment itself. We're able to play with mood, right? Different aspects of, the tone of a space. How dark or sad or happy or light is the space, right? In this case, it's kind of bland and strange in the Resident Evil PS1. This is an example of so ugly, it's good. And also the game is kind of repetitive, and but for some reason it's good. Legend of Zelda, Macarena of Time. Legend of Zelda here, a lovely game. Obviously, we're getting to a little bit more character in the landscape. It's still a little bit dull, very 90s looking. And there's The Last of Us, right? This is when we're starting to look at things like framing, composition, just a little bit more, right? Making video games more cinematic, which is something that they never did before. Now all of a sudden it's a part of the cinema community. It's very ingrained in film festivals and any kind of animation festival as well internationally. People recognize games not just as games, but as an art form. Oh wow, this is nice jazz. I feel like I'm in a dentist office or something.
I was thinking of bar.
No, this
Like
is.
jazz.
I guess it could be kind of like a bar, but it'd be like a.
Tatooine.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It'd be like Cowboy Bebop bar or something, perhaps. You know. All right, so framing is important nonetheless, right? So we have this evolution of bit depth and the evolution of colors and more possibilities have come about. And we're at the point where we can now experiment with games in a very cinematic way. So that's why we look at cinema nowadays when it comes to learning about game design, because it actually has quite the impact in that way. Let me go ahead and just pause this jazzy jazz. Okay, good. We're good on that. Edgar Wright, everyone, how to do visual comedy. And yeah, we're using this as a way to look into different ways of forming composition within our work, within our intro or opening cutscene.
Hi, my name is Tony, and this is Every Frame of Painting. So today I'm going to talk about a director whose work I love, but before that, let me be upfront. I think comedy movies today, especially American ones, have totally lost their way. I don't hate the jokes or the actors or the dialogue or the stories, though there's plenty of issues there. My real qualm is that the filmmaking, the use of picture and sound to deliver jokes, is just...
What? This is boring. Delete.
Look, everyone's taste is different. What you find funny is what you find funny. So I'm not saying these movies suck or you suck if you like them. What I am saying is that these movies aren't movies. They're lightly edited improv. Everyone stands still and talks at each other in close-up. Almost none of these jokes come visually. They're overwhelmingly sound. And not even the full range of sound, it's just dialogue. And this is really sad because that's just a fraction of what's possible in cinema. Apart from animation and some commercials, visual comedy is actually moving backwards. And that's why, if you love this kind of stuff, I cannot recommend Edgar Wright enough.
Doctor, deal with it.
Yeah, motherfucker. He is one of the only people working in the genre using the full range of what is possible. And because of that, he can find humor in places that other people don't look. Here's an example. Let's say you need to move your character from one city to another to get your story going. How do you shoot it, and can you get a joke out of it? Well, no. Not if you send out a second unit to do it. Every shot pans from left to right, you include really obvious landmarks and signs, you mix in generic helicopter footage, and you put upbeat music under it so the audience doesn't get bored. This is just lazy filmmaking, and boring. We've seen it a million times. What would happen if you were truly inventive with this type of scene?
Not ready.
There we go. And this isn't just a series of quick cuts. There's a lot of good visual storytelling here. These two taxi shots tell you exactly where we came from and where we're going. These two shots emphasize the move away from civilization. Our main character always faces forward or to the right, so screen direction is respected. Turning the music down and the sound effects up is funny because each cut is jarring. And there's even some nice performances from Simon Pegg and Ryan Gosling. Okay, that was one example without context. You're right, totally unfair. Well, What if you had a movie where a horrible apocalyptic event happens and you want to foreshadow it earlier, maybe by having the characters not notice something important on TV? How would you show it? Would you just throw it in the edit for 2 seconds and 2 frames and none of the shots shows the relationship between the characters and the TV?
He's having a housewarming party? He just finished building his house?
Or would you do this?
Although no one official is prepared to comment, religious groups are calling it Judgment Day. There's an increasing number of reports of serious attacks on people who are literally being eaten alive.
It's still unfair. Well, what if you had a movie where one character has stopped drinking, but the other characters are disappointed in him, and you want to get a joke out of it? How would you do it? Would they just stand around and talk about his drinking?
Appreciate it, but I told my wife I wouldn't drink tonight. Besides, I got a big day tomorrow. But you guys have a great time.
A big day? Doing what?
Or would you do this?
What?
I don't believe this.
This is what separates a mediocre director from a great one. The ability to take the most simple, mundane scenes and find new ways to do them. Great directors understand that you can get a laugh just through staging. Here's an example I cribbed from David Bordwell. Things popping up into frame are funny.
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
And it's not just things entering frame. Consider the opposite.
I said tell Miss Laura goodbye.
Bye, Miss Laura.
Yo, I love that.
Want to pop the trunk and roll the windows down, please?
You can get a laugh from a crane up.
It's so ridiculous.
I'm going home, Rita.
I know, Shirley, I know.
No, seriously, I'm going home. Can you help me out? Oh.
You can get a laugh from a pan.
Bye-bye.
Martin Scorsese put it, cinema is a matter of what's in the frame and what's not in the frame. So think about the frame. And this isn't just a matter of smart or stupid comedy. Really, if it works, it works. So with that, here are 8 things Ed
So
Wright does with
ridiculous.
picture and sound
It's
that
so
I wanna see
ridiculous.
other comedy filmmakers try out. Number 1, things entering the frame in funny ways.
It's for Scott.
The geographical location shouldn't factor in the application of the law. No thanks.
Number 2, people leaving the frame in funny ways.
You don't know how to switch off.
You didn't see anything
I
suspicious.
don't know why that makes me laugh.
There,
It's the
back again.
best.
They still have that.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Yeah.
What movie is this?
This
Number 4,
is
matching
Edgar
scene
Wright's, and for
transitions.
some reason the title's escaping me.
Shaun of
Shaun
the
of the
Dead.
Dead.
That's right, yeah.
What was it?
Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead. Yeah, it's actually really good.
Wallace!
Like the cinematography is
Number
great.
5, the perfectly timed sound effect.
That time you dumped Kim.
Okay, me and Kim are all good now, all right?
Do feel free to spool through.
Spool through.
Action synchronized to
Spool.
music.
Drinking beer pubs.
Shall we?
Number 7, super dramatic lighting cues.
What it is about that girl.
Scott, I forbid you from hitting on Ramona, even if you haven't had a real girlfriend in over a year.
And number 8,
Taking a shortcut before.
and you know what? Let's throw in number 9. Let him have it. So if you're a filmmaker, work on this. The frame is a playground, so play. And the next time you go to a theater and you pay $15 to see a comedy, don't be satisfied with shit that is less inventive than Vine.
And he said that's strange because...
What?
Yo. Alright, so, yeah, that's the gist of it is that, have fun with it, play with it. Don't just rely on sound, don't rely on dialogue, rely on visual dialogue, rely on visuals too. Because you won't really be, you could voice over some of your characters if you wanted to, but it's not the main takeaway from this course, right? So we won't be focusing hard on sound. We'll be messing around with sound, but we want to make our humor and our horror and everything, we want to make it accessible, right? Like, some people can't hear. So, having, or they have issues hearing, right? They're just not they're hard of hearing. So we have to be aware of that. And also, why just use sound when you can use visuals? In general, it doesn't matter if somebody can't hear, right? It's like just better. It's like 2 times better. It's like another thing that you're putting on top. Before I get into the demo for Photoshop, who needs a little bit more clarity on 01A? We're good on that? 01A, Project 01A? A little bit more? You can definitely do it in one night. It is due very soon. It's probably the quickest turnaround out of all of our projects, but it's the easiest one out of all of our milestones. You're literally thinking about what... that's actually why I wanted you all to start thinking about it last week, because it's fairly important. You can always change it though. It's okay. Like, you can change your game, the feel of the game, the mood of the game, right? Like, let's say you can't get it in the ideas that you want into your milestone by the end of the day tomorrow. It's fine. You can change things. I actually want you to change things because I want to see development. I want to see it sort of burgeon into something elegant, uniform, in style, and aesthetically interesting. So don't worry. You will have 2 weeks for the mood board, and each project milestone after that. This one just had to be a week and a half because of the nature of how the semester's set up. But yeah, it's not that hard. Take your time tonight and tomorrow, all day tomorrow, and hand it in. Do you want me to go over it again? I think a couple of you said to, so let me just do that. Go to Project 01A. You can access it in a couple ways. You can access project milestones right here in details and rubrics. You can also access them usually by week module. If not, though, just go to projects and rubrics. One more click away. The rubric is a little bit dense. I sort of went a little bit hard with the text. So all you really need to look at, though, is the template. You don't really need to look at the rubric, I'll be honest. The template says it all. Open up the template. You're going to make a copy of this, right? So File, make a copy for yourself. And you'll just go through these. You're going to replace this with the game title that you've chosen. You'll replace this with your name. And then you'll do this when you're all done. Because you're going to be making a copy of the template and replacing the items. So name it accordingly. An example is here for you as well, for your elevator pitch or one-liner. Remember what a narrative lead is? A narrative lead has to do with getting people to play your game. Use the senses. If you recall from last presentation, if you missed it, you can go through the slides. I talk about how you want to capture at least 3 or 4 senses, right? A good example being that rainstorm example, the water coming through the screen. That's a visual, but also sort of a smell, right? The mat The mat is damp. It's kind of the welcome mat, and that's kind of a touch situation. There's thunder, that's sound, right? So use the senses. We are primitive beings at our core, right? Like we are very complex, but also we are drawn to things that are of nature, that are natural, and that we can see, feel, touch, hear, right? Use at least 3. And then you're just replacing this information with images that you acquire. All I ask is that the images are all similar in mood and style. I want it to embody what the game is going to feel like. Is it going to be a dark atmosphere? Is it going to be a light-hearted atmosphere? You know, heaven or hell? Purgatory, maybe purgatory. That'd be cool.
Strive.
For purgatory, I'm imagining like a weird beige color for some reason.
I was saying more of a misty gray.
What is it?
Misty gray.
Oh, misty gray is nice too. Yeah, yeah. Misty gray. Does it have like a little blue in it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I'm just thinking champagne in purgatory. I don't know why. Champagne, champagne, as my father calls it. Would you like some champagne? Yes, thank you. And I think when he says Cabernet Sauvignon, he says it just like that. Sauvignon. That's weird. But yeah, he's a father. The boomer fathers. Yeah, and you just go all the way through, right? All the way to 15 images. That's it. Give me an explanation. Why are you using this image? Is this a landscape that you are drawn to? Is it perhaps you'll use it for your background? Why this image? That's it. Honestly, it'll be fun. You'll be able to plan out your game, and then as a sort of ladder goal, I want you all to be cognizant of what is possible with regard to not only what you're putting in the slides, but the slides themselves. Think about how the entire slideshow can embody the feeling of your game. Choose a particular font style, right? Choose a particular color for the backdrop, the background of the slides. If it's dark, it would be like a dark blue, violet, right? Anything like that. Or maybe a dark red. Really get into the design of the slides themselves. This isn't really a full-blown pitch in the accurate sense, but it is a pitch. This is a very simple pitch where, and if you want to use a GIF, that's fine. If you want to use video, that's fine, but preferably just images for now. Because you can actually take those images, or at least some of them, and use them in your mood board for O1B. And just to briefly touch base on O1B while we're here, we'll go back here to project details and or rubrics. Scrolling down to O1B, mood boards and concept art. It'll be due week 5. That's when it's due. Fairly straightforward. You're going to use 15 images. So it's almost like all of the images in O1A could go into O1B. But there are additional features that I'm looking for. So I want the mood board to be just one block, right? An actual mood board. And also, fit within that pixel dimension of 3,000, 2,500. Conveys the style of your concept art, some swatches, meaning a color palette. You all should know what a swatch palette is, I would imagine, from 110. Yeah? All right, good. And then descriptive words. And use that font style, right? Use that font style. Let that font style speak to your game. 5 sketch iterations. of player avatar, the protagonist. What do they look like? And then one that is full color. I want you to do one that's full color. So at least 5 black and white, one of which should be full color, and then 5 of the antagonist. And when I say iterations, be advantageous about it. How could you reuse this later? Perhaps you want to color all of them so that you don't have to color later. You can use this. We can then make a sort of animated GIF from those characters, and that way some of your work is done when you get to a different milestone, right? All of a sudden you have things you have like the side perspective, the front perspective, the 3/4, the maybe even the jump. I don't know. Question back there? Did you have a question? Or were you just like, or maybe you weren't doing this. I don't know.
When you talk about sketch iterations, do you mean like, are they all full bodies? Can they be like headshots?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at when I was like, oh yeah, full body though.
Okay.
But yeah, perspective, make sure you're aware of, try to make a sort of perspective like where it's front facing, right? Like a side facing one, perhaps kind of movement, things like that. It's not, and that's really only if you want to really dig into getting ahead, and then you want your milestones to be a little bit more modular, meaning use that work for another milestone. You don't have to do it that way, but it is a lot easier if you just do it ahead of time. So I can actually outline that for you a little bit further, and I have it down here. So a little note on sketch iterations. If you don't want to use this as a sort of final rendition of your character and you still want to think about it, you can just do black and white simple sketches on paper. Just don't use lined paper. I don't want that. And make sure the photograph or the image that you create from it with a phone or whatever, make sure it's legible. I don't want dark images. And yeah, draw them in Photoshop if you can. If you can't, that's fine. I do love a good tangible piece of paper. I mean, you won't give it to me, but you'll be using it. But yeah, all in all, ensure that your sketches are clean looking. Pen and marker typically. You don't really want. I don't want to see like your crumbs, your breadcrumbs, and your popcorn kernels, or like, or Cheez-Its box. I want to see like the just the drawing. And yeah, your sketch iterations can be less resolved, as I've notated, but I want at least one that's polished, right? One that's a final sort of rendition. It doesn't have to be a final, but make a nice one. That's all I'm saying. And choose any view of your character that you want to dig deeper into detail with. 5 views for both the protagonist and the antagonist. The front, back, side, left, side, right, 3/4 view. Yep, 5. No lined paper. So read through this a little bit further if you need it. The environment sketches, obviously, you may want to dive into that as well so you can reuse it. So dive deeper into it. But also it can be a sketch. That's fine. I'm not going to go crazy. Not going to be crazy on you about that. It's all about how easy do you want things to be later. And if you don't know exactly what you think is going to change, let's say your ideas are going to change, I wouldn't even advise you to do a more final drawing or painting, right? Just make sure that it's that you have something or some idea. Just start somewhere. That's the main goal. A lot of the times we get stuck, right? Yeah, go ahead.
In the 1A thing, it says that we're going to implement the graphic look for a platformer level. Is that what we're building on in this course?
Yep, I'm actually going to show you an example right now. So all of this here perfect timing, my friend. All of this here is talking about the environment that we're going to make and how we'll use our characters within it. So this is all stuff that you need. All of it's sort of laid out for you, the type of views that you need and the type of stuff. But I think it might be actually good for us to review, what do I mean by the platform? What do I mean by the middle ground and parallax? And what do I mean by the background? So let's dig into that. If I go into our myCourses thingy-majigs, I just went outside of our class. I'll go back in. Oh, Peter, good job. Getting all those grades done. Amazing. I think you did them. Amazing. So yeah, you have been graded. Go to content. Inside content and actually week one course review. We'll dig into that. You have an example of what you are making this semester at the very top. The very, very top. We'll be using a template that this game utilized. If you just blow it up here, we can then press start.
Too much snacks?
Too many snacks.
No, it's just snacks.
Let me just go into here. Where are you?
Press enter.
Yeah, let me just do that. Oh, I think I gotta get out of that. It's like messing it up.
Where's space?
It might be one of those things where like the UI got messed up when it shrank.
Maybe try reloading the page.
Yeah, let me reload. But yeah, we'll be using a template that this one is using. I promise the buttons work pretty good on ours.
On ours.
Yeah. Hey, I found it. Hold on.
Hold on.
I think it's a bit more
Up.
Oh.
How did that happen?
I don't know. It's just luckily we're making an actual application versus a web application, so we probably won't run into that issue. So look at how we have things sort of moving slightly in the back. You'll see the middle ground as I'm walking. You see the middle ground sort of moving and the background sort of moving. That is parallax, right? I didn't really want to go in there quite yet, but
Oh. Santa, do you have something to talk about?
oh yeah, it's all goofed up. Look at this.
Namely, why do you have a dungeon and a castle? Try putting your,
Sometimes you need a basement, you know?
Try.
We didn't have this issue yesterday. This is funny.
Hold on, try keeping it outside of full screen.
All right. Just gonna not pick up that key. I want you to look at that middle ground and the background and how it's moving. This is the gist of it, right? We're gonna be making that middle ground. You're gonna be submitting some kind of sketch of that middle ground as well as the background. And what I'm on right now is the platform, right? So we're gonna make all of this stuff and it's gonna be awesome.
And then die.
And then you die, yeah. And then Santa Claus wakes up again. Hey guys.
Oh no.
Pop, 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 pop. We probably won't have a interface like this, but you're welcome to do that if you want. We will have a pause menu and a sort of main menu intro screen situation.
I would like to mention I have a problem with jump animation because he just kind of goes back to idle.
So and you will be doing an idle animation as well, but yeah, and yours doesn't have to do that. Yours could keep on jumping. All right.
Oh no, I mean like you should pause the left, right?
So week 2. Open up Photoshop. We are going to just dive into some sort of basics on what is required for drawing in Photoshop. If you have your tablet, that's great. If not, no worries. I just want to go over a little run through of basics. You'll notice that the video I made for you all in my absence, it's essentially going over the same thing here. However, I also go into how to sort of properly make a mood board. And obviously you'll use the dimensions that are in the rubric. I used 1024 during my video recording yesterday. But yeah, review that. It's something you already know, but it'll be good to review and just get a different perspective on mood boards. And I actually did it of a mood board of my colleague, Travis. So I want you to make your own thing right now. At the moment, I would like you to attempt to make a logo for your game. If you don't know what your game is yet, that's fine. Just make some kind of logo. Could be of anything. Could be a logo of, I don't know, some weird yoga shop where you buy yoga mats, or or some kind of refinery of disgusting chemicals or something. I don't know. To do something creative. I'm gonna make my own, and I'll just be talking while you're also making things. Eventually I'll go around and just check out what you're doing, just to see where everybody's at. I would start off by opening your file, or opening a new file, click new file. New file. New file, everybody. You'll get something like this. The one thing that you're going to want to do, because I want to teach you what I mean by the difference between PNG and the sort of power of that alpha channel, and making that sprite, right? Make sure that transparent is selected for your background content. Switch to pixels instead of inches. And if we're making a logo, this should suffice, 1024 by 1024. We definitely don't need 300 PPI here. We could probably get away with something like 72. Color profile should be fine. However, Unity uses 709. So if we want to maintain the same color when this goes into Unity for our logo, perhaps we should use the right color profile. In this case, 2.4 gamma, 709 rec is perfectly acceptable.
Wait, hold on, don't say yes, don't say yes yet.
Oh yeah, no worries, I will wait.
I need numbers.
We're also going to switch to 16-bit. Everybody good?
No, that's the rec.
I'll wait another bit here. Good?
No, I can't find the rec.
Oh, it's in the color profile. You should see it in there. Rec.709.
Nope, can't type it in.
Just do that little drop down.
I did, it's not showing up.
In the meantime, go ahead and give it a name. So I'm going to name mine Logo 119. I'll press create. I don't know why it doesn't show it. It's okay though. We can figure that out later. Just pick whatever default. Once we're in Photoshop, we have yet to really use the paint tool. And I'd like to do that. So for that, let's take a peek at the brush tool. You'll see that B is the hotkey for brush tool. At the moment, we can't do anything because we only have that one layer. We need to make another layer to make this happen. So I'll press play here on that. Get our smooth jazz back, that's important. So to make a new layer, you're going to press that plus sign box at the very bottom of your layers panel. we get something like that. I'll double click it to rename it as paint. A little paint layer. If you hold down Alt and use your mouse wheel, you can actually sort of step your way towards the, and zoom in and dolly into the actual canvas. If you're using a tablet of some kind, you can place your pressure sensing on, which is this button up here. And then we have our opacity per pressure as well, if you're interested in that. If you are using pressure, good, and if it's a logo, you generally want it to be a hard round pressure size. And this will just fluctuate the pressure of the brush. I'm using a mouse, so it doesn't matter, but I'm going to select this anyways. Yeah, go ahead.
How do you get the paint tool in?
The paint tool is right here on the left side. A little paintbrush. If you can't see it, you can hold down left click and you'll see different options like a pencil tool or mixer brush tool. We want the brush tool at the moment. Sometimes what I'll do, just to give myself a little bit more clarity while I'm working with my colors, is I'll actually make a gigantic rectangle. So, and I'll just use it as a background. So in this case, I will use that. And I'm going to select the rectangle tool. It's a little backtracking here, but I'll select a sort of a grayish color, not too gray, but kind of gray, just so I can see my colors better. That's the main reason why I'm doing this. And then I'll just drag out that rectangle. And there we are. Once I have it, I will then lock that layer so that I can paint on top of it without any issues or accidentally choosing that layer. I'll choose the paint layer again. After which I'll go over here and I will use my paint tool to make something strange and fun. I'll choose a color, perhaps the misty gray that you spoke of. And there we are. I'll make a strange worm logo. And then within that, I will eventually create something inside. So I'll probably make a little fill in here with a new layer. Just so I have a little bit of an outline there, and then I'll change my color. I'll increase the size of my brush or tool. I'll hold down and I'll just draw whatever I want. In this case, sort of fill for it. The mouse is not easy, but we prevail. There we go. All right. I think it needs some weird eyeballs. I'll make a new layer just in case. Good to use as many layers as you can just to sort of make sure that you can edit things a little easier later if you want to, right? 'Cause you can always hide layers, such as that, right? If I wanted to get underneath somehow. I'll actually go into a sort of purplish color and I will make my eyeball. There we are. And then I can, once I'm finished, I can then just turn off that rectangle. But what if I want to grab it and move it, etc.? There are a couple ways to do that. One, I can use the object selection tool. It's a fantastic tool, but you know, it's not always accurate. Now it might be accurate if I were to select all the layers and then use the tool. So let's see what happens here. Let's see if it actually recognizes the object. Oh, whoops, I'm in the wrong one. Let me undo that. Go back to the object selection. Object selection doesn't like multiple layers selected, so we'll actually just do this. We'll go to the top and we'll just drag around it. It'll compute for a second, and yeah, it's grabbing the layer, but you can't grab multiple layers. That's kind of the issue here, right? If I were to select all this though and do a little deselect, so I'm not selecting just those pupils. If I use this and go around my object, it's choosing it, it's moving it. However, I want to grab all of it, not just one thing. So once you have it in place, you know, the selection box in place, there's a little trick here. You can actually go to the move tool and then just move this around, and typically if it is one layer, let's say you just want to grab like that layer there, right? You can actually grab all of them by doing the same thing. So Control D to deselect. So you actually grab the whole object in a very clean way. And then we'll go to the move tool. You can press V for that. And then look, it grabs the entire thing clean out of place. No need to worry about, you know, any mishap with the you know, with what it is actually grabbing. Sometimes it doesn't select things right with object selection. So doing it this way is a nice little trick to minimize those flaws that may occur. Sometimes you may have like little edges that are left over. This mitigates all of that, and it's just a nice trick. They don't typically teach it, right? Like if you look at the object selection tool here, it doesn't have it on at the moment. But this will select an object and try to basically select the whole thing at once. And usually it doesn't do a very good job. Let's say I'm satisfied with my work and I want all of the layers to merge together. I can select one layer, this being layer 2. I can then go down to the last layer I want, hold down Shift and select. And now if I right click, I can merge the layers right here, and I'll leave that open for a second so you can see. Merge layers. And now that everything is on one layer, I can do that trick I was talking about. I can also show you the flaws of object selection. So, so let me get into that. You'll notice that things are changing here, right? With the update of Photoshop, it looks like they enhanced this, which is really cool. So it could be that this works out great. If I select that, and it doesn't work out great, right? I don't want that. If I do this though, also not working out great, right? So we'll deselect that. They're trying. All you have to do is use that rectangle marquee tool and then the move tool. That's the best way to select everything in a layer in a very nice, clean fashion. So we'll make that rectangle marquee selection. Then we'll hit V on the keyboard, and voila. I have a perfect selection. Nothing is left behind, and I can move this wherever I need. That's important. It's important to know that because you're going to be using this a lot. You're going to be using Photoshop and perhaps other software. So that's a good trick in most softwares to selecting everything on a layer. Do Control D for deselect. And the one thing I go over in my video that I made for you is how to make this into a path on in Illustrator so that it becomes a vector. we only have a couple minutes left, so I'll just kind of bypass that. I'll just let you look at the video, but even the video doesn't go over it too much. It's a very simple sort of rudimentary step that I sort of bypass a little bit more than I would have liked. But if you are interested in a little bit more on how to make vector curves, I can certainly point you to another video I've made. Just let me know. But all in all, this is these are the basics, right, of painting and selecting things properly without leaving edges of color behind, right? Because that does happen. You have to be careful with that, especially with quick select, or even with sometimes the polygonal lasso tool. Sometimes that has its flaws, right? All of these are ways of selecting your layers and the things inside. One thing I can show you while we're here is I love Gradient Tool. Mainly, has anybody played Journey, the game Journey? They use Gradient Tool a lot in their sprites, and they do a really great job with it. And it helps to really keep the environment and the characters sort of uniform in many respects. So let's say I have something here like my worm, and I want to first select all of it. So I'll select my worm with the rectangle marquee tool. I'll hit V on the keyboard for the move tool. I'll get it all selected. Looks like I have a little bit of a boo-boo here. I can adjust that if need be. I'll go ahead and use the lasso tool. And you're going to want to hit subtract from, actually in this way, you want add to selection. So I have a little bit of a glimmer here, so I'll just circle around that, and that's added. I'll circle around this, that's added, and we're good. And it's just because I had some spaces that go behind the character, probably from when I moved that initial layer. And now we can use the gradient tool. Gradient tool is great. You can literally make gradients across objects. And this way we would select this, and you can use many different types of gradients if you want. You can also customize. And we'll go over that a little bit more in the video. But being that we're pressed for time, I'm just going to do this, but on a different layer. So I'll undo that. I'll actually make a new layer. This way I have more control, right? And then I'll just bring that gradient over, maybe something like that, right? But I'm going to reduce the opacity of that layer so that I can actually see underneath it. And it just gives rise to a little bit more dimension, a little bit more depth of my character. And that is all for today. Feel free to ask questions if you have the time. Otherwise, feel free to leave. It is 12:15. Well, a little bit past, but...
I have a question.
Yes.